I'm David Shields, and in this video for my behavior economics as well as my manager decisions class taught by Professor Wang, I hope to address the questions such as, does a greater quality of life within a workplace allow for greater profit per individual employee, as well as, is there any sort of turning point on this? Is there a level where it's going to be scalable and a quality of life that is fantastic in a workplace, allows for higher profit between the individual and the company? Or will there be a point where the company gets too big and that human suffrage needs to occur, or at least human disregard needs to occur in order for that business to progress and continue to grow? Some of the main questions I'd like to ask on this are, what is that company's overall profit? What is that company's motive? How many employees has that company had? What rate is the company growing? And there's a plethora more questions. Obviously, the main ones we'll be focusing on are the quality of life. That is going to be an anecdotal point in the study, as it's rather difficult for people to determine their own situation, I suppose. As well as, profit per employee. How many employees are working at certain wage levels? Is a company mostly going to be, laborers? Is a company mostly going to be executives? We don't know. So we need to find different weights in order to find this out. Now, however, to get why I'm fully doing this, we're going to do a little bit of legwork, and you're going to come with me. Howdy, here I am in my local park because I tried to film on location at the Wichita ICT-2 Amazon facility, but was told to leave, unfortunately. The main reason I would like to bring people there is to see the sheer number of people that rely on that as one of their main sources of income, including me, who previously worked there. While my time at Amazon may have been briefer than others, I can say without fault it is one of the most horrid working conditions widespread throughout America. It was not uncommonplace to see bottles of urine on the floor because people were unable to leave their position to use the restroom. It was not a misplaced to see people get fired for going and speaking to the safety council because they stopped working for 5 minutes on a scan-to-scan basis of their installed, I don't want to say spy devices, but essentially spy devices, timestamps of everything that someone does. And it is genuinely horrific to see these procedures put in place in the States and to experience it firsthand and to see the suffrage that people have to go through to survive in such a manner. My time there was working 10-hour shifts overnight from 6 p.m. to 4:30 a.m. And unfortunately, during my stay, there were multiple occasions, even on my first day there, over half the class that was hired and brought in had quit before the first week had ended. Now, not only does this create a cycle that can continuously go on because of Amazon's obvious success, but is also so disgusting to see that such a large company such as Amazon, that has the means to replace and automate some of these more menial tasks, but will not, due to the public backlash that they would receive for losing American jobs. And it just does not have anywhere else to go, and it genuinely breaks my heart. And that is why I'm making this project. As well as there, I felt, it's meaningless. It's, well, how much revenue does I, as a person, generate in this scenario to be treated in such a manner? And it cannot be worth it. Genuinely, it cannot be worth it. And I would like for there to be some sort of way to expose these practices and a way for everyone to move forward and gain a better perspective and quality in the workplace. So, we know why I'm doing it, and we have my general idea. Now, how will I actually succeed in this? My main goal is to determine that profit per employee. However, to just do that, we can't simply divide the overall profit of the company by each number of employees, as that'll just yield an average, which isn't going to be factually correct in our scenario, as the CEO should obviously be making more money, and the profit per CEO should be vastly greater than per every single laborer. Now, the way we would do this is we'd weight it by typically a class system, starting with laborer, going up to maybe supervisor, manager, and then a CEO or any sort of department like that, as well as separating it from corporate jobs to maybe more menial on-site jobs, as there will be a manager at every location. However, there's only one CEO. Another way we can do this is to provide other representations per people, such as where they might live. You know, it's not just going to be limited to the states. That would provide unsatisfactory results, as the working conditions per individual in the states typically will be miles ahead of, forced labor as well as labor camps. And that really isn't a good comparison. Or even very low wage paying countries like China with those sweatshops, as well as India and a lot of other Eastern countries. All right. So, as discussed previously, we cannot just simply go based off of profit per each individual in the company. We need to develop some sort of class system. My idea to do this is a percentage based one, where, say, if a company has 90% of its employees are laborers, or say 50% is from the corporate end, it can fit anywhere. And this would be expressed as profit times of people times the percentage of people in said position, um, divided by people per that class. So say we had, $10,000 in profit, 90% of the company's laborers, times 0.9, divided by how many people are those laborers? What is that 90% further? Um, and that will show that if a company is mostly laborers or corporate ends or just individuals doing their job, it will show that and will not just define it as across the board. Alrighty. And once we find that weighted average per class individual of the profit, another thing that we need to do is then weight it per working conditions. So, say we do it anecdotally, and it gets rated per great, average, poor, awful, maybe an excellent at the very top. And all these things can contribute to work-life balance, overall happiness, pay on the job, which is a little skewed, unfortunately. However, is the only accurate way that I know of to provide these results. Another great feature of this, as well as it might show that, hey, maybe companies with happier people actually make less profit because they're getting paid higher or have greater benefits or whatever might come from that, or even a better work-life balance when they're maybe not working as much. So another feature we can add onto there is, say, per hour, do it a time-based. After that, it does become more of a qualitative and not as much as a quantitative, uh, you know, measurement. Unfortunately, just because people aren't the absolute best at measuring their own situation, as somebody who maybe worked the same job for the past 20 years might say, hey, it's great. but they really don't know what else is out there because they haven't tried. That'd be where you come in with features like how's your work-life balance, stuff like that. And once you do all these calculations, you're actually able to conclude the profit per person, per class, per quality of life. It could be expressed as, say, per week you get $1,000 in profit per laborer in typical working conditions, or say you get $500 in profit per, suit corporate head uh, per week in fantastic conditions. It all kind of skews out itself, but it will show that maybe once there are more people, that profit per person comes down. It will be diminishing returns, unfortunately, or maybe on the contrary, it keeps scaling and it is an actual economy of scale, which is phenomenal as well. However, I don't believe that would happen. Now, one great limitation on this one, however, is the issue with anecdotal evidence. As like I've said multiple times, people are not the best at rating their self, as maybe they don't have comparison, or maybe they believe they have it harder than everyone else. That self-rate system as the honor system typically can be a slippery slope. Another great, limitation on this is, what if I'm limiting it only to America? Like I did state previously, there are sweatshops and forced labor camps where people are working in far worse, far more terrible conditions than anywhere here in the States, but that won't be brought into consideration. So there are plenty of limitations on this, especially when it's done in just a local area. Now, lastly, one follow-up study we can do on this is, say we measure these companies right now and we come a couple years down the line. Has it improved? Is it scalable? That will not only provide us a time frame for that company, but as well it'll say you're in the same industry. It could say, hey, maybe your stock price has fallen, maybe the value of the company has grown drastically, and maybe that profit maybe isn't as much, or maybe it's higher. There's so many potential, but as a follow-up conclusion, I would like to study specific industries, may chance. Maybe not just an individual company, but whole industries, say construction industries, or say marketing firms, as well as say manufacturing of a specific good, not a specialty good or just standardization, as well as what are the technological improvements? Has those improvements increased the quality of life while increasing profit for the company? But there are plenty of follow-up researches that we can do.